Apple pie is one of America's most iconic dishes. It shows up at 4th of July barbecues, Thanksgiving feasts for generations. But don't let that fool you. Apple pie isn't nearly as American as some people would believe. In fact, apples aren't even native to North America. This is Historic Eats. I'm your host, Country Boy. If you like stories like this, please subscribe to my channel. But without further ado, let's get started. Apple trees and the art of pie making both originate from different regions, and over time and trade routes would intersect to create the delight. Apple trees date back to Central Asia, where they originated. There's an interesting account of Alexander the Great at 328 BC. During his chronicles, he mentioned dwarven apple trees in Kazakhstan, a variety he later introduced to Macedonia for cultivation. The story of these apple trees progresses through Western Europe by way of the Silk Road, which is a historically significant network of interconnecting Eurasian routes that connect the East to the West. Both humans and animals in their travels unwittingly participated in apple seed dispersion throughout these routes. Simultaneously, pie making was taking place as early as the ancient Egyptians. They were the first to invent the dish close to what we know as pie. They would use a honey filling with a crusty cake made from oats, wheat, and barley. There was even a chicken recipe that was etched into a stone tablet prior to 2000 BC. Later on, in the 5th BC, the ancient Greeks were credited with inventing a pie pastry. One can find references to a pie pastry written by the famous Greek author Philosophes. The craft becomes so specialized that you could earn a living as a dedicated pastry chef. As the craft further evolved, the Romans encapsulated meats and other ingredients within a coarse dough-like paste. Interestingly enough, Roman bakers saw the dough as more as a practical cooking tool than an edible part of the dish itself. This innovative culinary adjustment happened around the same time that apples were being introduced to Europe by Romans, marking a major step in a culinary application for apples. With the fall of the Roman Empire, there was a shift in the domain of apple cultivation. Previously, Romans had been at the forefront of developing advanced techniques for apple growing. However, as the empire disintegrated, monastic communities assumed that mantle of preserving and enhancing apple cultivation techniques. During the medieval period in Europe, it marked a seminal phase for pie history with the advent of coffins, which was a pastry-encased foodstuff that were preserved meats, fowls, and fruits. Their sturdy nature met with practical preservation needs prior to the invention of refrigeration. Upon entering the 14th century, one of the earliest ancestors to modern pies, the Tardus in Apellis, can be found within the pages of a cookbook in 1381, exhibiting a pastry shell filled with apple slices and spiced with saffron, but it was devoid of sugar. Interestingly enough, this recipe became prominent by 1390 and earned a distinguished place in the form of curry, which is a cookbook collection authored by the culinary team of King Richard's II royal kitchen. Advancing to the 15th century, and the Dutch would contribute an essential upgrade to apple pie design, creating an enclosed format, which is a departure from the English's open-faced creation. Still, by this time, pie desserts were reserved as a rare luxury, as spices and sugar bore a stamp of exclusivity. The inception of the New World would alter this dynamic through the expansion of the trade routes that made once precious commodities like sugar more available, thereby bringing once elite pies within reach of the public. When settlers like the English, Dutch, and the Swedes came to the New World, they brought their love for pie making with them, but they found it hard to make pies with the native crab apples because they weren't quite right for pie making. So they introduced a variety of apples to North America from Europe and brought bees from Europe to help pollinate those apple trees. Additionally, people like Johnny Appleseed Chapman also played a role in spreading apple seeds across America, and as a result of their effort, there are now over 14,000 different varieties of apple seeds here in the United States. With the wave of immigration, they brought not only an increased variety of apple seeds, but it transformed the local culinary landscape. Apple seeds and apple cuttings were common cargo on incoming ships, but they also brought their fondness for cider and a strategic approach to land claiming via tree planting. With the influx of Dutch and German settlers, they had particular influence on British inhabitants with their apple pies featuring a flaky, buttery crust. It was a departure from the traditional British fare of scones and bread pudding, and once again, the practice of apple pie making significantly grew as sugar became more readily available in the colonies. American Cookery was one of the first American cookbooks that came out in 1796, confirmed this proliferation by including not one, but two apple pie recipes by Amelia Simmons. By this time, apple cultivation was flourishing, and apple pies had secured themselves in the tradition of American cuisine. The American Revolution further fortified the attachment to apple pies into the American identity, a connection that would only solidify with the 19th and 20th centuries. One of the earliest examples of apple pie association with American identity can be traced back to 1902, where the New York Times editorial declared pie as American synonym for prosperity, linking the heroic qualities and asserting that no nation of pie eaters could ever be vanquished. With the dawn of the 20th century, apple pie saw a boom in popularity with the commercialization and standardization. Pre-made crusts and canned fillings allow families across the country to easily bake apple pies in their own homes. As apple pies proliferated, the association with American values grew. It was during World War II that the phrase "for mom" and "for apple pie" was sealed its status as an emblem of American values. Interestingly enough, the phrase "as American as apple pie" would also soon appear, even though its precise origins remain tough to pinpoint. Notable mentions include a 1924 suit advertisement and a 1928 article lauding the First Lady Lou Henry Hoover's domestic skills as American as apple pie or a corn pone. Over time, the references to other staples would fade away, leaving simply as American as apple pie as the prevailing phrase. Furthermore, apple pie has played a vital role in holiday and family traditions as it's become customary for events such as Thanksgiving and 4th of July. The act of baking apple pie has been passed down through generations, with each family adding its own touch to the classic recipe. Sharing a slice of apple pie during these festive occasions has a sense of unity and togetherness to both their intermediate family and the larger American community, and reinforcing cultural values. In addition to the presence in everyday life, apple pie has found its way into political rhetoric. Politicians often reference apple pie to invoke feelings of patriotism and a sense of belonging. It is commonly used as a metaphor to symbolize American ideals and values. By associating apple pie with the national identity, it reinforces the notion that the American way of life is unique and worth preserving. Furthermore, apple pie is the embodiment of American exceptionalism. The phrase "as American as apple pie" is frequently used as a distinctiveness and a superiority of the American culture. Apple pie has undergone a modern-day revival, with innovative variations and reinterpretations appearing in culinary circles. Chefs and home cooks alike experiment with different apple variations and spices and crust alternatives, adding their own personal touch. While apple pie associations were being constructed, it is an embodiment of American values, and not just for its wholesomeness and its history, but because it represents a blend of cultures and traditions that define that American narrative. Despite originating in Kazakhstan and being popular in Britain, apple pie showcases how immigrants' experience have shaped and enriched the American culture as a whole. The legacy of apple pie is a testament to its versatility and its timeless appeal, and its ability to capture the essence of American culture from its roots to a symbol of patriotism and comfort. Apple pie continues to be celebrated and enjoyed, and it reminds our collective past and connects us to our heritage and invites us to savor a uniquely American experience. Thank you. I'm your host, Country Boy, and this is Historic Eats. If you like stories like this, please subscribe to the channel. Peace.